Good morning, everyone. This is the California Placement Association monthly webinars. I want to welcome everybody for being here. I am Rosalinda Rivas, president of CPA. An honor to work among so many privileged people throughout the state. We have a couple of board members here on the line. So if you could introduce yourself to everyone here in the group, that'd be fantastic.
Hello, welcome everybody. I'm Denise Crawford. I'm past president of California Placement Association. Welcome to our new webinars. I hope we have a good time. I think it's no pressure, Rosalinda. So
thank you. Who's next?
I can go next, Rosalinda.
Great.
Hi, everybody. This is Shelley Lattice. I'm with Mount San Antonio College, and I am a new board member, but I wanted to welcome you all as well to these very informative monthly webinars we're having. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Shelley. All right. I see Jackie. If I can have everyone, I know I have people here from all over the state. If you can introduce yourself on the chat box, put your name, perhaps the city that you're in or the state that you're in, that would be fantastic, or the organization, so we can get to know you a little better. Appreciate that. And today's webinar is, let me pull it up here on the screen. Give me 1 second.
Yes.
All right, let's start off with this. All right, so what I want to do is I want to present, we have another board member, Greg. Greg, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Good morning, everyone. I was just typing in the chat. Sorry I'm late. My name is Greg Friedman with Merced County Office of Education. I'm a job developer and training technician for our adult ROP programs. I'm on the board. I am the representative of the employer panel representative, I think, for education, with Luis Sobravia, who'll be joining us here very shortly for the northern region. Did that cover it?
Wonderful, thank you. And Greg will be checking our chat boxes, so if you do have any questions, put it in there. Greg, want to thank you for taking the lead to be on Chat Patrol. Feel free at any given time to put in a chat message if you have a question. If you are open to unmuting yourself and you want to ask a question out loud, I just want you to know that this is an open forum discussion. It's absolutely safe. So please feel free to just unmute yourself and interrupt me at any given time. Or Jackie Kennedy Harris, who is the co-facilitator, she is with JHK Career Coaching and Consulting, has worked prior to that with Enterprise, with one of the Fortune 500 companies, has been a major leader for Enterprise in the past part of her career. So you can speak out loud and ask questions, or if you feel more comfortable in the chat box, do that at any given time. So we good?
All right,
Yes,
thanks,
yes.
Barbara.
All right, Jackie, if you want to introduce yourself a little bit first and kick us off.
Absolutely. So I'm Jackie Kennedy Harris, and I am the corporate business partner for the California Placement Association. And welcome everyone to our webinar. Got a good group here. Good number.
All right, today's topic is, first we had the workforce ghosting, right? And then we went to the workforce pandemic, and then we call it the new job masking, right? Where are the job seekers hiding and how to bring them back into the workforce. So this is a presentation, and it's also a roundtable discussion with many of us that are in workforce, as well as employer experts, and a lot of us have been dealing and speaking with a lot of HR staff members and with SHRM organizations. So let's have this discussion, and let's go ahead and kick us off. So really quick, workforce ghosting. How many of you, just from a show of hands or little emojis, attended the month of October ghosting in the workplace? How many of you had the opportunity to see that video? A few of us? Okay. Wonderful. If you haven't seen it, we do have it available, and it will be posted on our California Placement Association website. And so you can always refer to that and then get the PowerPoint slides of that if you'd like as well. We can go ahead and provide it to you. So we're going to talk a little bit about, we're going to recap a little bit about that, but not too much. But we're going to have a little discussion about workforce ghosting so we could see if we're all on the same page. And for those of you that missed that opportunity to see that webinar, we do want to share a little bit about it so that we can kind of get caught up in it. So what is workforce ghosting? So let me open this up to all of you. So what is workforce ghosting? Who'd like to share? Go ahead and unmute yourself and share.
well, I think one of the things is when somebody applies for a job and they never hear from the employer, right? They go to all that trouble to apply, and then there's But I also have seen it on the other side where somebody applies and they get an interview and they don't show up. They just, they say they're going to show up and they don't show up.
So they get a job offer, but they never attend or show up to work, is what you're saying?
Right.
That is true. That's a good point. So that does happen. So ghosting is a combination where the employee, or maybe not employee, the job seeker, has a job offer. And for whatever reason, they accept it, but they decide they're not going to show up. They don't give a call, they don't email, they don't share anything. They just disappear. In regards to ghosting from the HR piece, that would be like from the employer recruiter piece, right? But what about the ghosting that occurs with online applications? Can somebody share with me about that?
Well, I would think that if we're referring to online applications in the sense that they're actually applying and maybe they're not responding back, or they may have started the application and it's showing in the system that they haven't completed the application. A lot of times it could be a combination of both. And generally it's because they're probably interviewing somewhere else in the process. And so, generally even trying to target and send a message out to say, please complete the application. Sometimes that doesn't happen either. So I think part of it is just they have their hands in several areas and going with the best offer, which could be frustrating for an employer, right? Because we still have to process every application or try to get an incomplete application completed.
That's true. And with the automatic tracking systems, which are also known as the ATS systems, that software programs that a lot of companies are utilizing as technology has been assisting companies with automation in regards to processing systems for applications online. A lot of times the ATS systems will screen the applicant's resume and or the job duties that they put in the application online. And if they don't meet a certain criteria, they don't get selected to the next phase. And the next phase is going to be the portion which means they get called into an interview. And unfortunately, a lot of the companies don't have that automated system, which will send them an email saying, you don't meet the minimum criteria or you're not moving on to the next phase. So the job seeker that's applying online never hears back, as you're saying. They never get an opportunity to get any feedback or anything. They applied, they spent about an hour and a half filling out an application online, and it's very disheartening. They feel disvalued. The job seeker gets frustrated and they feel ghosted. And so there becomes a frustration with the job seeker applying from company to company. And that's something that does occur. But at the same time, what we want to share is that the HR individuals, the recruiters, the HR managers, those that are in the company, they are not seeing all the applicants that go through the system. They only get the applicants that have made it to the next phase. So it's not that the individuals, the people who are in those positions are ignoring everybody else. It's just that they too never get to see that. So they don't know. So that becomes part of the challenge as well as frustration with what's going on in the workforce. So you see it's impacting the HR managers, it's impacting the job seekers, it's impacting the workforce. A lot of positions that do get offered, as I think it was Denise that was sharing, companies offer the position, but the individuals don't show up. For those of you that work in workforce development, can you share a little bit of what your job seekers have said of why they don't show up to work when they are offered a position, or why they show up to work one day and don't return to work?
It's childcare right now for a lot of them.
The childcare component, yeah, okay. That's a valid point, right? The necessity for their children's welfare to take care of their children. What other things have we heard?
Transportation. Like we have a new Amazon here in Bakersfield, and it's way out. I mean, it's really not that far. It's out by the airport, but the bus doesn't go out there. And I think people apply for those jobs and they get hired. Everybody gets hired. And then they go to the orientation. They might go to work for one day and realize this is not doable. They can't afford to do an Uber or a cab or whatever. They don't have a ride.
That's a good point. Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. Well, really quick, I see Paolo has his hand up. Go ahead.
I think one reason is when people are applying to, let's say Indeed, they apply to like multiple jobs. So when they are interviewing, they could be interviewing for like multiple jobs. So they might get an offer today, but if they get a better offer the next day, naturally they just might go to the other one. And I think that happens. And sometimes again, with the ghosting, I mean, if we don't hear back from the employers until that day, I think like naturally people are gonna be going for the one with better benefits or higher pay, and just not even looking back to the one with, you know, worse benefits.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up, Paolo. That's so true. Now the other advantage or disadvantage with technology is that you're able to like utilize a search engine, which is like Indeed.com. There are multiple other search engines that individuals can use, like Monster.com. On the topic of job search engines, can you all help me out with what they are? The top ones are like Monster, Indeed.com,
Yeah,
Snag a
so you
Job.
have, I can jump in. Yeah, so you have Indeed, of course you have Career Builder, you have Monster, but they all are now streamlined through Indeed.com. So no matter where you're posting your resume, ultimately it will all get filtered into Indeed.com. So that's the number one search job board engine, if you will.
People are saying LinkedIn and the Google job search engine is actually better now.
Right.
Well, and I think LinkedIn is, obviously I think it narrows it down. I think what's happened Indeed is very broad, and because it encompasses all of the, the search engines, there's more work that's involved in it. Whereas LinkedIn has a better feel for the professional side, meaning maybe it's some connection where you can kind of do some research a lot easier. Google, yep, you're right. That's a big one too. A lot of folks are just Googling to see what jobs are available.
Right. So no matter what platform you're utilizing, job seekers, as Paolo was saying, they can apply to multiple positions at any given time. So in one day, depending on how it's set up, they can click 10 different positions and go ahead and apply online. And because the resumes are stored in there, they're able to apply faster. Sometimes, depending on the company, right, on Indeed, they might send you to the platform where you have to actually fill everything out as well. So the job seekers right now have options. And in regards to opportunities with the workplace, the benefits is a big factor. Another huge factor is the salary. Some of them are being providing incentives for hiring individuals, which they're calling bonus or sign-on bonus or retention bonus, right? So let's talk about that. What are sign-on bonuses? Jackie, you want to tell us what sign-on bonuses are? You're very familiar with the business industry.
Yeah, so sign-on bonuses is where it creates a commitment between the employer and the employee. And this bonus is an incentive for them to stay with the company. It's almost like if you think of like an employment agency where an employer is going to pay an employment agency services to have that person placed with the company. It's kind of the same concept. But the reason behind it is the incentive. They feel like, okay, if we offer a bonus, then that person is going to be a little bit more serious and we can hold that person accountable for staying with the company. And also, from the employer's perspective, it's going one step further than maybe a company that's saying, okay, we don't offer anything. So the bonus is a real good bait, if you will, to really grab that candidate and show that we're serious about hiring you on with our company. In addition to that, we'll give you a bonus just for coming on board.
That's great. Thank
So
you.
it's a great incentive, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for explaining that. So all of these are different valued components that makes a difference. Hold on, I'm going to go ahead and I want to spotlight both of us. Give you a second. I think this will make it easier for everyone to view. Are we both spotlighted on there for the individuals? Craig, can you give me some feedback?
Not yet.
Standard. I'm just going.
Okay.
Yes, Jackie is. Yeah.
So those benefits or incentives do make a difference in regards to why an individual may select one employer or the other. Aside from the sign-on, retention, and bonuses, there is also work schedule. Work schedule has become another topic of conversation, especially as we've hit the pandemic season. And I'm saying season because hopefully this will pass, right? The pandemic era. Our workforce expectations shifted drastically, abruptly, without any planning. COVID-19 struck our nation and our planet. It's been a global issue. And here in America, one of the things that occurred is that hybrid positions became open, where some positions are available where you can work from home, where and others during the pandemic, they were working straight through. So the positions that you now apply for might be that you are on site at the company, where they may offer a hybrid position where you're at the site for a few days and then at home for a few days, or it might be completely hybrid. I mean, working from home or off site, you don't even have to go there. So that also is another factor of an incentive, right? A value that might be part of the reason that's weighing out into why a company or an individual selects one company or the other, but doesn't bother to tell the other company that they're no longer interested in that position or they don't want the position. And like Pablo said, sometimes they say that at the very same day as well. So they just don't bother anymore. Yeah, so that's a good point. Any other
Yeah.
comments or conversations in regards to this? All right, there's a couple of things I wanted to share here. One of them says, and this was out of Atlanta Fed, workers have increasingly been ghosting employers amid the pandemic, according to Atlanta Fed. Now, this just came out in September 2021. The citation is on the bottom, but one of the things that whether it's in Atlanta, it's occurring here in California and everywhere else, the ghosting has increased. So during the time of pandemic and now it's continued to increase. It's not something that has gone down or has stabilized. It's actually peaking upward. So it's continuing to rise. And we're going to talk a little bit more about why that is happening. But any ideas that you have in regards to that? Why do you think there may be more ghosting occurring where it's actually peaking and increasing? We talked about the incentives. Is there any other item of discussion?
It looks like there's more options for job seekers.
Great. Yeah, a lot
Yeah.
more options. A lot more options. And that's definitely a valid point. Jackie, you want to go with the second one? The second bullet, the one
What?
reason they told insiders is that the employers have been guilty of doing it for years. So this goes around the discussion of job seekers feeling so frustrated that for
Well-
years that they've been that companies have been ghosting them, therefore they're disassociated with the idea of ghosting.
Well, and that's a great point because a lot of companies will run postings. Some companies hire year round. And just on my past experience, postings will run every single day. So the whole idea is to be able to generate as many candidates as possible. And this is in particular with companies that promote from within, where if they come into like a management training program, you need the volume, right? So you're going to have a lot of candidates that are going to be applying, which means your postings are going to run continuously. And then we then get hit with the volume. But as we're narrowing it down to the key folks that we want to pursue, we forget about the others, right? So it becomes a situation where, we get all these candidates in and we're unable to really respond to every single one back because it's just a high volume, which does leave a bad perception on the job seeker side because they feel like, I applied, I'm not hearing anything from the employer, but a lot of it has to do with the volume of just posting and keeping that applicant pool filled. Which sometimes that's a great thing, but at the same time, it could be a bad thing for the job seeker.
Right, especially it's like, if you're not actually hiring right now, why are you taking my application? Why are you accepting
Right,
the application?
absolutely.
I mean, I think we would all be, I know I would, and one of the things that we could do as job seekers or share with our job seekers is after they apply, to connect with the HR person or find somebody on LinkedIn and just say, hey, I recently applied for the position. Looking forward to the next phase. Do you have any suggestions or tips? And a lot of times that will trigger someone that's in the HR world, to say, oh, let me look at this person took the leadership role to reach out to me. And they'll look in the database and look for that candidate. And that candidate might not have made it to their email saying that they passed the screening. But now that they're looking for that name, they're able to look at the pool of candidates that are within their system and pull them out of the section of where they were never going to get a call back to the part where they now get into I'm going to say the viewpoint, right? Into that ideal role of being looked at and reviewed and considered for the position. And so this is one way where we can have our job seekers in the workforce or ourselves that are looking for employment opportunities to be proactive, to take that leadership role and take that initiative and shift that paradigm. Because I'm telling you, HR managers, the recruiters, they want to work with you. They want to have those conversations. And a lot of times they're limited in what's coming to them with the ATS systems that a lot of the companies are utilizing for online applications. So
Yeah.
that's one way we can do that. And you know, in regards to that, they've been doing they're guilty for doing that. Well, that's true, but it has to do with technology, a lot of it. And I'm not excusing the behavior. I think companies are starting to look and find ways of how they're going to change this. And they're looking at a lot of artificial intelligence on how to redo their analytics, redo how they're screening candidates, you know, and that's kind of going into discussion right now. So
Yeah.
hopefully we'll see a shift in that as well.
Yeah, and
What
that's a great point, Rosalinda, because I think companies are even switching up a little bit by doing this, actually applying the screening questions first, and then not even get to the application, because if you submit an application, it's got to be processed. You've got to indicate why you didn't pursue that candidate for just reporting purposes. So it seems to be easier for them to just do the questions initially. And then if you meet that criteria, then the application will be the second phase. So I'm starting, again, it's got to be an easy process for the job seeker, right? They don't want to spend all that time filling out an application to get to the screening questions to go, oh, I didn't even qualify. So I think that you are right. They are getting on board with trying to make things a little bit more easier for the job seeker. Absolutely.
Great. Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
And the last bullet here says, while ghosting mostly happens in the hiring process, some employees also had it happen to them. So the hiring process is when you get selected and you're already going through the background check. You're going, what, do you want to talk about that, Jackie? How you were doing it from a business perspective, since you actually have been in the HR industry world and the hiring and screening?
Absolutely. So the process is obviously when the postings are there, they apply. We go through a process where they have to qualify. So as you mentioned earlier, for the ones that do not meet minimum criteria, they go into a bucket. That's your do not qualify bucket. And then you have the ones that are active that meet the criteria that you're actually going through. Now, because of the volume, you know, it's very a fast process where you got to go through each application. It's actually to the point now where, you know, I prefer to look at resumes over the applications, because the applications are formatted one way where the resumes can show a little bit more of the personality, if you will. From there, it's narrowed down with the resumes. Then there's a phone screening process, you know, where, you know, you contact the candidate and see if they sound good over the phone. If they do, they come for an interview. If they don't, then we go to the next candidate. Once you actually get them in face-to-face, that should be your short list, as we say. Those are the ones that definitely, you know, meet the criteria. They sound really great over the phone. They come in for the initial interview. And then from there, a lot of companies will do where they have panel interviews, but in order to really see if this person is going to fit into the company culture, to make them feel comfortable, it just works to do individual interviews. And so, you know, they would come in and do the interview with myself. And then from there, you know, if I thought that person would be a great match, then they would get passed on through the process, do a second interview, do a final interview. Then the managers and myself will circle back, make sure that we all see the same things with this candidate. And at that point, once I submit the information, get their background checks cleared, then an offer is made at that point. And that's the crucial part, because the offer is where you have to babysit the process. In other words, you make the offer, they accept. Now you got a start date, right? And you want to make sure that in that window, they're actually going to show up. So you may want to start implementing some things where you're engaged. Whoever did the initial interview, whoever made the contact with the candidate, and now they're going to be coming on board, but we've got a 2-week period before they can actually start. You know, you want to have some communication with them during that time. You know, kind of massage it a little bit, because that's another form of ghosting. When you don't have communication and you just wait for them to show up, sometimes they don't show up. So others may have a different process in terms of their interviews, you know, but it considers from either 1 to 3 interviews with maybe about a, you know, 5 to 7 day turnaround time to get a person in and hired on from day 1 to their actual starting date.
Yeah. And a lot of
Yeah.
times too, I think one of the big challenges is if, let's say, part of that hiring process, let's say they didn't pass the background check. Sometimes, going back to your topic of communication, sometimes because HR is overloaded, or the communication breaks down at some point or another, they move on to the next candidate, and the candidate's thinking they're still going through the background, and so they feel ghosted because nobody communicates with them that they didn't pass the background, or that they're missing something that they needed to submit, because sometimes they're not checking their work email. And by that, I mean individuals sometimes have an email that they're using specifically for job applications, but on their phone, they're using their own personal email where they look at all the time. And so there might be a component where they needed to sign some paperwork or do something, but since they're not checking that other email, they lose out on that opportunity to continue with the process. So then they feel ghosted. So it's important on the communication piece for those job seekers to make sure you look at your emails to see if there's more communication of items that need to be addressed or filled out, or to make a phone call. Be proactive, make a phone call, and find out and communicate. So the burden does go a little bit on the job seeker sometimes to be proactive, but it's also a good way to know what's going on, as well as on the other end, like you said, Jackie, sometimes the HRs feel like you're having to babysit, you're having to reach out and engage, which is great because you're bringing in the value, the importance. You definitely want to show how important it is for them to come on board with the company. And that ultimately is what companies want. They're wanting to build their workforce with the right candidates. And if you've been selected, you're obviously identified as a wonderful candidate to be part of the workforce. And that onboarding, it's such a critical thing. And we're going to talk about onboarding because one of the shifts that's going on in the HR world right now is the onboarding piece, where it used to be a short period of time and now it's actually growing into a longer segue. So let's move on. Any other questions or comments? I think Martha Leva mentioned that she thinks employers are rethinking their hiring process. And Martha, you are right on target. That is so true.
Right.
Those discussions are being made, and even at the higher levels, and corporations are coming together, and HR networks are grouping together to find the solutions to make this better, because they realize that they need to be proactive on this as well.
Right. And just to add to that, I don't know if you guys remember, for those who are on the webinar, the applications now will not, for most of the applications in California, there's going to be a box that will not be there. It's the ban the box. And so at one point, these applications would say, well, you convict to some type of background misdemeanor or criminal charge, or whatever the case may be. Most applications will not have that on there. And the premises behind that was to be able to open up the applicant pool by giving everyone a fair chance. But at the same time, when you did the background check, something would show up. So now you're stuck in a situation. What do we do now? I mean, we obviously opened it up for them to apply because there isn't a box to check on there, about their background. Now what? So I think, getting those job seekers to be very upfront, I think is going to be the key thing, because a lot of companies do have a little bit of a leeway. If it's a misdemeanor, they may be able to work around it. But I think sometimes job seekers feel like if I don't pass the background check, or maybe I can not say nothing, and then it comes up, then okay, oh well, I'll disappear and they won't be able to get a hold of me, as opposed to maybe being quite honest up front. I think that's a little bit more respectful from the employer's perspective for them to do that.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point regarding for those that have convictions, from the past and stuff. Depending on the company, mostly in California, it's a 7-year background that is done. So if the conviction is more than 7 years ago, I'm not saying it's okay. It depends on where they're applying, right? It's not going to show up when they pay for the background check. They're only going back 7 years. So it may not show up, but it's not that the conviction has disappeared. It's just that it's going back 7 years. The other thing too is sometimes, depending on what it is, even though you have a conviction, companies are okay with it depending on what it is in the workplace. So don't be afraid. And they're being more and more open to working with individuals with prior convictions. So yeah. Let's move on to the next page. All right, the Great Resignation.
Wow.
Let's talk about the Great Resignation, right? Wow, what a topic! What a topic. Well, first of all, what do we know about it? What have you heard in the media lately? Let's talk about that. And I want to say thank you to whoever was that, Paulo, for putting the California Fair Chance Act into the chat box. Thank you for that resource.
Thank you.
So what do we know about the Great Resignation? Let's hear from our workforce team here that's on the audience. I would like to hear from all of you. Unmute yourself. Don't be shy.
Hey, it's Barbara. I serve as champions. So the Great Resignation, to my understanding, is that kind of during the pandemic, people kind of got different work-life balance, right? And so they kind of, I think everybody's thinking shifted to family being more important, you know, home with the kids, homeschooling, all of that. And then they go back to a company who wants them to work, you know, some of our shifts are 10, 12 hours, and they're like, yeah, I'm just not doing that. So that's my kind of understanding of the Great Resignation.
Yeah, that and that is a huge part of it, Barbara. You're correct in regards to that. That was a major part of it. What else do we know about the Great Resignation? There's so many variables to this.
I'll chime in. You
Thank
guys
you.
remember a song, if you're old enough, Take This Job and Shove It? That
I guess
song,
I'm old enough.
I've been reading articles on the Great Resignation, and I'm looking at it from the adult ed career training space. Like people aren't even just coming back to our schools. I feel like people are moving, relocating. They're getting out of the rat race. Well, I'm in LA County proper. And though our population grew, looking at recent census numbers for 2020 census, and LA County grew by 7%, California grew by 7%, but our local school districts are in decline. I'm looking at the districts in the outer areas. So you folks out there in San Bernardino County, Riverside County, I'm seeing your school district numbers go up. Where the property values in LA County are ridiculous. They're not going down. You can take your equity out of a house in LA County and go buy something outright in another, at least another state for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure.
You know, so I'm going to say that I think it's just people really questioning their quality of life and soul searching and just realizing that they don't have to live in this rat race anymore. It's kind of like, why bother? So I think we as workplace professionals, trainers, I started getting into the mindset of, you know, what are the dream jobs people are looking for? Maybe we have to really financially support people engaging in education and training. So anybody who's familiar with like a Job Corps model, you know, Job Corps basically pays those trainees to come and participate in training and, you know, get them on a pathway. So I'm kind of like, you know, the Great Resignation to me is America waking up and soul searching and redefining their place in life and society.
Awesome. And who's
Well
talking again? I don't
said.
see who's, yeah, who's actually, who's
Ryan
that was just speaking?
Whetstone.
Say it again, Brian?
Ryan.
Okay, awesome. Ryan, okay.
Yeah,
You
thank
guys
you for
can-
sharing. And
yeah, if
that
you guys
is,
can- go ahead.
go ahead, Jackie.
No, I was gonna say, if you guys can kind of introduce who you are when you make a comment, because we don't see it on this side. We'd love to know who you are.
Okay, well, I'm
Yeah,
Ryan
awesome.
Whetstone. I'm the Mount Sac Regional Consortium for Adult Education Manager. So I work with all the adult schools and non-credit education here in the Mount Sac service area in LA County.
Wonderful.
Awesome, great.
Thank you. And I think I saw Martha's hand up. I'm not sure if her hand was up earlier or disappeared.
Yes, I would just wanted to just add, I absolutely agree with the gentleman that spoke before. I think that job seekers are really trying to look at their current situation and maybe going after their dream jobs instead of like working a regular 9-to-5 job and it's not really fulfilled. But I also saw like a lot of factors involved with the COVID and after COVID, and kind of we're still struggling with it. As childcare was a big issue, as well as, you know, people, you know, the whole vaccination, whether you're vaccinated or not, has played a lot into it. And as far as not wanting to return to regular work because they're afraid of COVID. So it's just like a lot of factors. And I think that definitely I agree with him that training and education is kind of like the way to go after this pandemic, because I do feel like people need to be retrained and upskill their current skill sets to get those jobs that they really want and go after. So that's kind of like my opinion. But I mean, I feel like there's a lot of factors, because I talk to a lot of employers and they're asking, where are the job seekers? Where did they go to? Like, where? And I agree. I think some people probably left California. And I don't know if there's documentation or data that supports that, but I do feel that people have left California.
Well, I think you got to stay anecdotal. Just think about people you know. And I know people who have left that I
Right.
thought would never leave. I know people who are talking about leaving.
Right.
And so it's real to me in a personal way. And
Mm.
so I think when I look at people and have direct conversations, people are like, do you know anybody who's left recently in the last year or two?
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
A whole
dude.
bunch of
And
them.
when you start
Right.
engaging in conversation, and I'm sorry, I got to hold a match to the idea. I'm afraid to be somewhere right now because of COVID. I mean, unless you're really locked away in your house, if people are going out to any kind of concerts, baseball games, football games, social events, Costco, I see people out in social venues where this idea that they don't they're afraid is like, that's BS. And the other thing is, to me, is people are afraid of the shot, the vaccine. They don't know what's in it. I kind of look at people with tattoos, and I'm like, if you're tatted up and you're an anti-vaxxer, I'm like, do you have any idea what chemicals are in the ink that you just put in your body? You know, you just put this stuff all over your body. You've been doing it for years. You didn't question a soul on what's on that. And now you're afraid to go get something that's been validated by our experienced medical community. I'm not going to talk about politicians. I'll talk about the medical community. And that's like somebody questioning you on your expertise. So if you're expert in a particular area and somebody walks up and says, I don't trust you. You know, you work in workforce placement. You don't know anything about resumes and telling me how to find a job. I'm going with what I see out there. So I think we have to reconnect with connecting with the professionals and respecting professionalism. And I mean, it's good to question at a certain level, but at the same time, we have to move with human logic.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah,
Great points.
yeah.
Go ahead, Jackie. You
And
want to say something?
yeah, I also think that, okay, pre-COVID, I mean, COVID made everyone kind of look at their financial situation, kind of downsize in certain ways. And I think that some folks started to realize, wow, we're making some sacrifices financially. However, we're able to kind of sustain our lifestyle to a certain point with only having one income versus two. So how about, you don't go back to work and we'll just, make these sacrifices. So I think a part of the lack of job seekers are they've consolidated their finances or made these adjustments to be able to downsize, if you will, to be able to have that flexibility. And I think that's a part of what's contributing to the lack of the job seekers.
Right. I wish I had a bell, because what I feel like doing is I feel like going ding, 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 ding. All of you are correct, Jack.
Yeah.
All of the discussion, all the topics that you shared in regards to the Great Resignation, right, are the reasons that behind it. It is the work-life balance. It's the work schedule, what's convenient. A lot of people realize they could save money by staying home. The time, and traffic, the time of the time commuting or being away, not being around the children, the value of the family, the value of, why are we spending so much money on a car? We don't need to drive a car. And for
Right.
the, insurance went down.
Right.
People gave back their cars. There's another whole sector where a lot of cars went back on the lots and stuff. People gave up the second car in the
Right.
household. In some of them, the other part is a lot of people are doing retirement early. They just decided, and I think Ryan, was it Ryan that mentioned, they're finding homes cheaper at another state. I know plenty of people that have resigned and they purchased homes outside of the state.
Yep.
And, I recently changed jobs from one college to another, and when I came, my dean says, I'm resigning, I'm moving to Florida. And just the month before, my cousin, she and her husband, she works for the state of California with child support. She's a director over there. And my brother-in-law works for Chevron, a big top position. Both of them decided to take early retirement, and they're young. Take early retirement. They sold their house. They made so much money off of their house. They bought a house and another half for their children over there, and they relocated. And so the conversation about the housing in regards to the housing being so high and valued, it's like the opportunities are there. So they're taking advantage of it and selling their house, paying off a new home, living less, and also taking a look at the state's incentives. In certain states like Florida, and I'm not promoting Florida, but they don't have to pay tax on retirement. And so these are variables with that life balance of what's valuable is coming into play. People are realizing that's a factor, the factor of the work hours. Then there's another factor that we haven't mentioned yet, and it's called burnout. During the time of this pandemic, bless all the workers that never took a day off. Bless them all for being there back to back, risking their lives with the uncertainty, having to work 2 to 3 times as hard. I mean, do you remember all the shelves being empty, right? And
Oh my
toilet
gosh.
paper was like,
Yes.
oh my gosh, like you, like you're breathing, right? Got to find some air, got to find some toilet paper.
Right.
You know, we laugh about it, but that was like the rollout, no pun intended, you know, of what was to come. And the individuals that were working during the pandemic, everyone in our supply chain, logistics supply chain, our manufacturing companies, our emergency response, our hospitals, you know, that never stopped for them. As a matter of fact, their workload increased. And you know, they're at the part of being burned out. We have a lot of people in the medical industry that have been, they're quitting because they're burned out, they're exhausted, they're looking to change careers, you know. I saw Paulo put on the chat box that he's thinking of changing careers so he can work from home, you know, doing IT. And on that note, Moreno Valley College, if you're near Moreno Valley College, we offer a cybersecurity training program that is free because it's a registered apprenticeship. So if you look at registered apprenticeship with adult educations, or whether with colleges or union trades or anywhere throughout the state of California, apprenticeship training programs are fantastic because you can get training for free because it's an apprenticeship, and you start working with a company and you're doing your work-based learning, you're an employee with all the benefits. And at the same time, you get to get those certifications and upskilling for free. So, you know, that is something else that's taking into account with a lot of our job seekers. They're changing careers. The homes are going from a two salary household to a one, realizing they can do it. You know, so a lot of that has an impact. A lot of people do not want to go back into the workforce. You know, I have a son who was out of state. You know, he's 24 years old, so he was about 23 when the pandemic hit, and he was out of state, living out of state, from state to state, on his job traveling. The pandemic hit, came back home, and you know, didn't quickly go back into the workforce, and so he started gaming. Went on Twitch, started gaming because that's what he liked to do. And I said, okay, for the first 3 months, you know, you have money saved up, you know, figure out what you want to do, figure out a new job. You can't be doing sales, you can't be going out there. So what do you want to do? So he was gaming, and in the gaming world on Twitch and everything else, he got a job offer from a subcontractor with Google. And so now he does subcontracting for Google, and it's virtually from home. He does video conferencing, editing, I don't know what he does, and all sorts of other stuff, you know, with technology. And I mean, in my home, you tell him, let's take it home, right? He's like, I don't want a job where I have to go to work. I just want to work behind my computers. And so that's what he wants to do, you know, so that has shifted. And I think with everything that all of us are hearing, you know, when we're working with our job seekers, we need to hear their story. We need to hear what's of value to them. We need to do the job matching to really understand versus, you know, here's what you need to do. I think the workforce in California with unemployment, you know, people went off the payrolls, right? So you would think, oh, you know, their extension on EDD has ended. So they'll probably be coming back into the workforce, which is what HR was expecting, anticipating, and it's not happening. You know, some of them are considering retraining. A lot of them are reconsidering what is of value. Do they really want to go back to work, or they're just going to stay with one single income, or how they're going to do it? You know, so I think we'll see in the next 2 to 3 months if that's going to twinkle and go forward, where come January that we'll see the increase or not. But that leads us to our next topic here. And I want to be mindful of time, so let's see. So I can't, oh, where am I? Okay, the workforce strategies to bring people back into the workforce. Let me find out from all of you before we get started here, what are some of the things you're seeing or hearing from your job seekers or those that you're assisting within your workplace? Can somebody share? Anybody?
Now I can jump in, but I'll let someone else go. Does anyone?
Oh, Lynette, thank you for sharing. Can I read off what Lynette wrote? She says, this reminds me of the Great Migration when we relocated more than 6 million African Americans that moved from the rural South. Oh, I lost it. To the cities of the North and the Midwest from the West in 1916 to 1970 for a better quality of life. I think that's key. The better quality of life, I think, is what's going on with the Great Recession. People had an opportunity to find what's of value to them. And I think that's creating a shift in the workplace too, where companies are starting to figure out how can we bring more value to the employees. But so thank you for sharing that. And I think there's something else in the chat from Paulo. Let's see. I think another factor is that student loans have been paused. It's allowed many people to take the risk of career changing and doing something else, which kind of goes into the adult education training, short-term trainings, taking advantage of some other opportunities to revamp themselves. And the gig economy is another factor. I quit a weekend part-time job because I made more money doing DoorDash, Uber, and Lyft. Oh, so true. And can I just say thank you for that service, because all of a sudden I have increased using DoorDash and Uber.
Yeah.
And in regards to Lyft and Uber, I appreciate those that are doing that, because like Halloween, my daughter went out and it was good to know that I sent her off on an Uber. She came back on an Uber. But people are making money that way, right? So that's, it's a shift, right?
Right. So it's kind of interesting, Rosalinda, this topic, because as you know, I am working with the students that are getting close to graduating and they need to be placed. And part of what's happening, and this is definitely a fact, is that they are not getting the necessary preparation from their current, whether they're in a vocational school, a 2-year institution, 4-year college, they're not getting the proper career preparation. And so what's happened is that now they have lost that motivation to really want to be confident in going out to the workforce. So my strategy is to bring them in and get them all coached and ready, kind of that personal touch. So if you guys have your clients that are out there and you see that they're lacking the motivation, the key thing is you're going to have to spend that personal time with them. That's the only way that they're going to have build that trust and get the buy-in, knowing that you're spending that extra time with them to kind of help them, coach them, if you will, or be their advisor, if you will, to really be able to be very competitive and to get back in the workforce. And again, the majority of my clients have been from 4-year institutions. So that's a big issue when they are concerned that they don't have the resources to really be confident in their ability to even get past an interview, to even get past that process. So taking just a little bit, one extra step, or implementing something just a little bit more with your clients, your job seekers, building that connection, I think helps them to really feel good about themselves. And at the same time, that motivation, which I think is needed. I think they're scared right now and they don't know how they're really doing. So it's really our jobs as to be in those positions to kind of help coach them through the process.
Yeah, that's great. And building that talent community in regards to how to get our job seekers engaged, but also valued, where we're nurturing them, assisting them, and truly guiding them, I think is important. And that takes the perspective from the piece of us working with individuals that are coming to us, that we're working with us, our clients, right? Our students, our community that we're serving. So those job seekers that we have that contact with is to be aware of that. And there is a lot of talent community building that's occurring, or strategies and tips. On the left-hand side of the white box, there's some areas where it talks about how to do that, how to get the business partners engaged, our former students, former employees, how to connect with them and build those relationships and figure out what could we do better. And that includes with the companies, what can they do better? Which goes on the right-hand side. I just want to share with you, which Cher mentioned, that the onboarding process, which used to be hiring somebody and say, okay, here's your orientation or the basics, and then they put you to work and that's it, right? You're pretty much disengaged, right? That's shifting also. They're looking at more ways of how they can, before somebody starts, how they can work with them, how they can send them friendly messages, how they can welcome the individual, how they can make them valued into the organization, even before they start the job. So that nurturing and engagement component is being heavily looked at and strategized by a lot of companies right now with SHRM, which is the Society for Human Resource Management. Also on the first day, you know, making sure that they arrive on the first day, that they personally greet them, that there is a welcome committee, and then there's a point of contact or someone that's going to be available to them for mentoring and assisting them. And then also they're looking to extend it for more than 6 months, you know, in regards to getting feedback. How's it going? What do you need? You know, what are some of the mistakes? How can we make it better? What resources do you need? Where there's really, truly a support system and there's a conversation. And then after the first year, they're looking at how they can go ahead and include that. Something that came up was a critical conversation topic. If somebody is interested in saying, you know what, I don't want this job anymore because I'm here 5 days a week, I'd rather be 2 days at home and 3 days here, have that conversation, because a company now is willing to consider those, depending on the type of job you have, of course, consider those opportunities, where in the past it was like, no, you have to be on the job site.
Right.
So I think we need to tell our job seekers as well, don't be afraid to have those conversations, to advocate and say, you know what, I would really like to have 2 days at home and 3 days here where I can work from home, and then have a plan of action of how that would work out, you know, what the benefits would be, and then share your work-life balance priorities and stuff, whether it's the childcare, the transportation, or the time, or the fact that you can really focus on, because HR managers and CEOs are talking about this, and they're also saving money, and they're also figuring out how do we revamp this workplace. And so that is a topic of conversation that is starting to be discussed on the larger scale with huge companies as well as small companies. And I think it's our opportunity to share that with our job seekers. I'd like to hear
Awesome.
from the
I see a
audience.
couple of hands. I see a couple of hands. Martha, did you have a question? I see Martha and Carrie, their hands are raised.
Thank you.
No, I
Martha,
already
you're
spoke.
still on?
I already spoke. No, I already spoke.
Okay, I'm
Okay,
gonna
Carrie?
take this off really quick.
Yeah, I have to jump into another meeting, but you know, one of the things, unfortunately, that we're seeing is it's sort of like, you know, when you show up at the airport and they've overbooked flights. Now we've got employers, because they have so many no-shows.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you've talked about this before, because I was in another meeting, I couldn't join earlier, but US Postal Service is hiring people right and left, and then before their start date, sometimes after they've received their start dates, they're being told that position is being rescinded.
Right.
So,
Oh, wow.
you know, it's because, you know, their employers are struggling. I mean, they're like, I need to fill these positions, and we hope people will show up, but they don't show up for interviews. They you know, or they show up and they accept the job, and then they never show up the first day of work. So,
Right.
and my 2 cents on that is, we've been surveying the students since last fall. I started doing surveys with all the students at the college, and some community members too, depending on the workshops that I'm doing. But whenever I do a workshop, I have them do a quick 1-minute survey, and it asks them questions like, you know, are you looking for work? Do you need work? If you do need work, and you're not looking for work, why not?
Oh, good
And
question.
nearly 90%, I haven't looked at it lately because we continue to add to that every time I do a workshop. We're saying mental and emotional health. So still, you know, it's, yes, we're moving back. Everything you're saying, Rosalinda, about bringing, you know, you have to take steps as an employer to try to keep the employees you have. And if you don't onboard them again, even though they're already employees, in a way that's appropriate and shows that you have concern for them, kind of differentiating that and, you know, support for them and creating equitable options, because every employee has a different situation. You don't know if they've lost people. You don't know if they've been sick. You don't know if they, you know, what they have lost in this last year and a half. And just across the board, you know, everyone has their own expectations. I've had employers come in and say, well, now that they ended unemployment, now they want to get their job back. Well, I'm not going to hire them back. And I said, well, you might want to reconsider that.
Right?
Were they a good employee? You know, did they do an outstanding job when they worked for you? Then you know, have some compassion, show some grace in terms of what have they been through? You know, why is it, you know, it's not, you know, unemployment is not full salary. So if you do collect unemployment, even though in some cases, yes, the incentives, they were making more than otherwise, you know, just the value of work and purpose in a person's life, they don't give that up really easily. And so I think the mental health aspect of what they've been through in this last year and a half has probably from what I'm seeing, it has the biggest impact on why people are not showing up. You know, they have to feel valued. They have to feel purpose in what they're doing. They have to be feel like they're being treated fairly, and that they're going to be able to utilize their strengths, their skills in a way that's going to make a difference. And I think when employers get more fully on board with that, those are the employers that are going to leap ahead with the first pick of employees looking for work. So
I agree. Yeah, great points. Thank you, Gary, for sharing that. And that's a great way to close this session. You know, things to consider, you know, and some of them have lost not just their jobs and things, but family members' lives, you know. So I guess we'll end it with lives matter, right? The workplace matters as lives matter. I want to thank you all for being here in regards to the workforce strategies, you know, in regards to ghosting and the pandemic masking and how to bring the workforce back.
Hi, my name is Luis Sobrevilla, and I work with the Merced County Office of Education, and I'm a proud member of California Placement Association.
Hi, my name is Greg Friedman. I work with Merced County Office of Education. I'm a proud member of the CPA Northern Region.
Hi, my name's Denise Crawford, and I work at Bakersfield College, and I'm a proud member of the California Placement Association Central Region.
Hi, I'm Rosalinda Rivas, and I'm a proud member of the California Placement Association.